Well, good morning, directors. Are we all ready to get started?
We are good to go, Madam Director.
Terrific. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May 3rd, 2022 Housing Authority Board of Directors. Clerk Moss, could you do us the honors, please?
Yes, I can, Madam Director. Washington County Board of Commissioners is now meeting as the Washington County Housing Authority Board of Directors for this regular meeting, May 3rd, 2022. Director Fye?
Here.
Director Savara?
Here.
Director Rogers?
Here.
Director Roper?
Here.
Director Treese?
Here.
Director Willie?
Here.
Director Harrington?
Here. Thank you. First item on our agenda is public communication. This is an opportunity for community members to speak to the Housing Authority Board of Directors for up to 2 minutes. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone signed up today?
We had no one signed up, Madam Chair, but we do have one hand so far. Dale Feek. Dale, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me, Kevin?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
I'm Dale Feek, Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network, Chair Harrington, and Housing Authority members. I didn't plan to say anything, but I just want to say I really appreciate all the hard work you're doing, especially for the housing unhoused in Washington County. A very important thing to do. Keep it up. Congratulations on it, and take the criticisms you need to take corrective action, and keep working hard for the people that need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. Would any other members of the public wish to address the Housing Authority Board at this time? Give you just a moment. Not seeing any additional hands, Madam Director.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of 4 items. The minutes from our April 5th monthly meeting, then approval of the 2022-23 public housing flat rent schedule update, approving updates to the Housing Choice Voucher Program Administrative Plan, and approving updates to the public housing admissions and continued occupancy plan. What are the wishes of the commission with regard to the consent agenda with 4 items?
Motion.
We have a motion from Director Roper. Do we have a second? We have a second from Director Treese. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, directors. The motion carries unanimously 7-0. Next, we're moving on to action items. Today's action item consists of 1 item to approve a resolution and order in the matter of authorizing the executive director to execute all required documents and instruments for the development of the HAWK, Housing Authority of Washington County, Affordable Housing P4 Rehabilitation Project. And we have our staff here to provide us with a summary staff report. So we'll turn it over to you, Assistant Director Josh Kreitz, as well as Housing Development Manager Shannon Wilson. Thank you, Josh. Sorry, or Mr. Kreitz.
No, that's fine. Well, good morning, Housing Authority Board of Directors. Again, Josh Kreitz, Assistant Director of the Housing Department and Housing Authority. We're really excited to be with you here today. I'm here with Shannon Wilson, and then our development consultant who's here for questions, Zach DeGorge with Bronner and Company. But we're really excited to be here today. I think this is kind of a very specific milestone that I just want to call out before I turn it over to Shannon, just to give a quick reminder of where we've been and where we're going with this project. But our staff, our team, we bring forward a lot of different projects to this board and to the Board of County Commissioners. Just really interesting, impactful work for the community. I'll have to say this one here holds a pretty special place for me. The ability to rehab 332 units of existing affordable housing and keep it affordable for a long time. That's what I like to call a collective win. It's a collective win because the residents in these 5 sites and these 332 units, we're going to vastly improve the living environment for these residents. That's the most important thing here. Second, I think there's a really large community and neighborhood impact when we take the time to go to existing buildings and substantially rehab them and just get them in better shape. So I know our friends in Tigard and Forest Grove, and then obviously our community here in Aloha are really excited about this project. I already mentioned it, but this keeps these sites affordable for decades longer, which is important. As we know, retaining affordable housing is just as important as the creation of new affordable housing. And then last, I want to talk about like the collective win that we have here in Washington County as a staff. Our team here, I want to call it Shannon Wilson. I want to call it Will Seals, our asset manager. I want to call it Leslie Gong, who's been working on this project. They put so much time into this over the last 3 years. Our finance team has been lockstep with us. Our legal team has been working with us because there's just so many moving pieces to a deal like this. So again, I'll stop there. Maybe I was brief as I wanted to be, but I just want to call out because this is a really big project and it's been 3 years in the making. So I'm going to turn it over to our development manager, Shannon Wilson, and she's going to kind of walk us through again a little bit of a history and what we're asking for today.
Great. Well, good morning, directors, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you. Shannon Wilson, Housing Development Manager. And so I'll provide an overview of or an update on the HAWK AHP4 Portfolio Rehabilitation Project. Next slide, please. So first, just to briefly run through the agenda. So we'll provide a project overview, look at the updated project financing, an update on the timeline, and then the requested action before your board this morning, as well as an opportunity for any questions or comments that you may have. Next slide, please. So first, the HAWK AHP4 Portfolio Rehabilitation Project. That's a big name to say. And so I wanted to work through that acronym. So HAWK, of course, is the Housing Authority of Washington County. And AHP4 is Affordable Housing Portfolio 4. And because when we began this process, long ago, as Josh mentioned, there were 4 properties in the Housing Authority's portfolio that have been identified as having significant capital needs. And over this time, as we've been working together and assembling the financing, that 5th property was identified as also having significant needs. And we came before your board last fall and requested approval to add that property into this project. So however, at that time, all of the entities had been established as the HAWK AHP4. And so that's why the name is still HAWK AHP4 Portfolio Rehab Project, although it does include those 5 properties. So as Josh also mentioned, is 332 units total. And there on the slide, you can see the breakdown of where those units and properties are throughout the county. So 2 of the properties in Tigard with the 2 largest properties, and then 2 smaller properties in Forest Grove, and then 1 in the Aloha neighborhood of unincorporated Washington County. Next slide, please. And so the scope of work is very significant for this project, and it also is varied. So it's it is honed to each specific property. So our consultant, Bronner and Company, they did a significant capital needs assessment that was specific to each property. So they went to all 5 properties, went into all of the 332 units and identified what are the needs. And so broadly then the scope of work, so all of those needs identified are rolled up into this broad scope of work that includes immediate needs, addressing life and safety concerns, ADA, that's American with Disabilities Act compliance. So that includes additional accessible units at the properties as well as accessible routes along the properties or on the property grounds, energy efficiency upgrades, water intrusion mitigation, so addressing any flooding or moisture issues at the properties, and major system replacements. So some of the properties a need for the full plumbing replacement or full electrical, full building envelope or siding or roofing, those major system replacements. And as Josh mentioned or really highlighted earlier, the overall goal of this project is to position these properties for long-term sustainability, and most importantly for those residents who live there and the residents that will live there over time, and then also for these properties to be an asset within the communities where they're located as well. Next slide, please. So this slide gives a summary of the updated project financing. And the sources and uses that you see, those different categories, those are all the same. Those have not changed since the last time we have been with your board. You'll see those amounts, the totals for each category. Those are currently not to exceed amounts. And so we really want to give your board a sense of what is the max that the project will involve. So because all of those specific amounts, those can really vary as we continue to work towards construction loan closing and start on the renovation work. And so we are working towards that closing and project start at the end of this month, so the end of May. But until then, those numbers can move around a little bit. And so that's why we want to provide your board of what is that not to exceed amount. And so you'll see here the total not to exceed is 120 million. Those sources there are the tax credit equity through the federal low-income housing tax credit program, which is administered by the state. Private activity bonds, the Housing Authority is the issuer of those. We received an allocation from the state treasury. Seller financing, so that is the equity that the Housing Authority has in those 5 properties that is bringing to this project. So these 5 properties will move from the Housing Authority into a partnership where the Housing Authority is that managing general member of the partnership. And then cash from operations, that is rental revenue that comes in during the rehabilitation period. So the rehab work will occur on a rolling basis throughout all of the 5 properties, and the majority of the units will be occupied during that time. And so some of the rental revenue that comes in during that period will also be used to support these project costs. Then looking at the uses, the existing value of the assets, that's based on a third-party appraisal of the existing value of the 5 properties. The construction costs, those are the actual hard costs for the rehabilitation work that will occur at each of the properties. And then the soft costs, that includes a variety of fees. That includes things like permit fees, legal fees, financing fees, third-party reports, and consultant fees. Then the developer fee are funds that are coming to the Housing Authority, but the majority of those will be used to work with the county to defease the full faith and credit bonds that are currently on those properties. And then reserves, those are replacement reserves that will be used. So once all the renovation work is completed and the project is operating smoothly, those replacement reserves will be available to address over time in the future to address any emergency needs or unexpected capital needs that may emerge in the future. Next slide, please. So this is the timeline. Oh, I apologize. I didn't realize it had these animations in here. But so to work through the timeline that Josh had walked us through briefly. So the project began in 2020 with your board authorizing the Housing Authority to move forward and form a low-income housing tax credit partnership and to begin work to assemble financing for the project. Then in 2021, we did select a development and financing team. We added that 5th project, or the 5th property to the project, and then we secured an allocation of those low-income housing tax credits. Then in 2022, so earlier this year, we secured an allocation of those private activity bonds, and then we are currently working to close and begin the rehabilitation work in late May. And then shortly after closing, we'll work on the county side to defease those bonds that I mentioned, the full faith and credit bonds that are currently related to the portfolio projects. And then for the balance of 2022, and then for the full calendar year of 2023, that is when the rehabilitation work will be occurring. And so by the end of 2023, this project should be complete and all of the rehabilitation work will be complete. Next slide, please. And so finally, the action before your board this morning is to approve the resolution and order authorizing the executive director to execute all required documents and instruments for the development of the Hawk AHP4 rehabilitation project. And so we've brought several items related to this project to your board previously and to the Board of Commissioners. This is really the final kind of all-inclusive resolution order. It includes all of the funding sources and the structure of the financing and is really the final approval needed for our executive director to sign all documents, engage in closing, and for the project to get underway. And so with that, I want to thank you for your time, and we are happy to take any questions or comments that you have. And as Josh indicated, Zach DeGorge from our consultant group, Bronner, is also available for any questions. Thank you.
Directors, any questions or comments on this proposal? It's a little hard for me to see all 7 of you, so go ahead, Commissioner Rogers. Thank you.
Josh, looking at this as a purely business standpoint, we're always trying to add inventory, obviously. But by your own analysis, when I read this the other day, I was looking and saying the value is 42 million. We're spending 120 million just to rehab it. It's kind of like taking a old car and saying, I'm going to redo it. You still got the old car and you haven't got any more value. So tell me, what's the business case other than I know we need inventory? What would be the inventory? What would be the business case for just not selling these units off and buying new ones that would not have these kinds of conditions? Maybe adding more units because we'd have 120 million bucks or so to do it. But tell me what your thinking is.
Yeah. Well, I think when we first started looking at this back in 2019 and we brought our development consultant in, we asked them to look at all the options. We asked to say, are these buildings, is there anything here that's not salvageable? Does it make sense to sell the assets off, buy new affordable assets elsewhere? And when we went through all the analysis and looked at the different options, it became evident and clear to us that holding on to these assets, investing the money into the rehab, bringing in the private equity made the most sense. And again, just losing assets, it's really hard to replace and redo assets. But I'll ask Zach maybe, if there's any like a little bit more detailed analysis on kind of what your group looked at when you start working with us.
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think first, it's a bit of it's a shock to see that number, but the reality of it is that it's a bit of a paper transaction, and so there's really not $120 million of real cost that the authority is expending. The reason to have that acquisition value so high, which is a large majority of the costs associated with this, is that it generates some of that tax credit equity. So in reality, in most situations, you wouldn't even have that, but we want that really high acquisition value because part of that tax credit equity is generated by that acquisition value. So in reality, the authority is not really writing a check of their own cash of that seller financing. It's really there's a cost, and then the use is really that equity portion, and that in and of itself creates that tax credit equity. So that's the first part I'll say. The second part is that we did look at disposing of some of these assets, and one of the advantages of going this route is that the authority is able to, with the county's participation, defease the bonds associated with these properties. And so if the authority was to just sell these properties outright, a significant portion of those proceeds would go towards paying off the debt associated with the properties. And so the net at the end of the day would be far insufficient to actually replace that number of units in the grand scheme of things. So what this really accomplishes is, without the authority really writing a check to put a penny in, is spending $55 million in rehab to preserve 332 units, and defeasing the bonds associated with that, so that reduces the liability for the county while preserving these assets without having to write a check. And the residents at the end of the day not only benefit from all of that substantial rehab to where these properties will look beautiful once complete, but also bring additional subsidy into the properties so that they're more affordable long-term, and there's deeper level of affordability in the grand scheme of things.
Zach, a couple of comments. One, a little bit of pushback. There are monies that are going in. It's not like it's free. It's American taxpayer through the tax credit program. If there wasn't a tax credit program, this wouldn't even pencil out. I mean, on the private sector, they couldn't do this. That you know that, and I know that. So I mean, I just want to be clear on that. But what happens after we do all this? And I get the part about the defeasance of the bonds, and we have to do some other things. But when we get 120 million in, do we end up with not a $40 million asset, but a $60 or $70 million asset? So some board 10 years or 15 or 20 years from now is going to say, we still have that old car. We put a new engine in it. That's nice. We still got the same problem. We just kicked the can down the road. Tell me, just to satisfy my intellectual curiosity, and not saying, well, this is all free because there's federal money in it, but how does it pencil from the standpoint of being value in the future?
Sure.
What right before Zach jumps out, I just want to jump on one thing. One of the things that we made really clear when we started this deal was we can't go in and look at a band-aid approach. We can't go in and put a new coat of paint on here and maybe replace a few things here and there, some windows and stuff like that. If we're going to do this project, we need to make sure that we're eliminating all the major capital issues. So we're not looking at anything over the next 15 years, like major capital calls, like Commissioner Rogers, for example, we've been experiencing millions of dollars at Bonita and water intrusion issues and stuff like that. We can't do this deal and then 3 years later have $2 million in water intrusion issues. So as we spec this out and put that together, the project scope, we're really clear, like we need to be able to take care of these issues. We need to be all in to make sure that this portfolio is not going to be kind of that presenting these problems in the future to authority leadership and county leadership. But I'll turn it back over to Zach, but there's a little bit more detail in there that I might have missed.
Yeah, I think two things really quickly. One is that, and I didn't mention this before, one of the other benefits is that over the past 5 years or so, the authorities actually put in quite a bit of cash into these portfolios, and not to rehab them to this extent, but actually to just go through that Band-Aid approach of, and in the millions. It's pretty significant, and they don't actually improve. It should the livability of the properties, but more so just address immediate critical needs. And so by doing this, that stops the bleeding, if you will, of the authority having to write a check on an annual basis to keep these properties afloat. So that's one point. Two is that, when you see the acquisition value here, that is the as is. That's what these buildings are worth today before any of this rehab. And so the bank actually has a separate appraisal that they provide. That's what are these properties worth after all this rehab is done, and it's substantially higher than the value that we've got here. So there's benefit in terms of value, and on top of that, just the appreciation after 15 years. One would think that the value is far greater in the future. And one would also hope that this program is available in the future to continue keeping these properties affordable. So I think there is some financial benefit to the authority just by addressing these capital needs. The other piece that I'll say is that seller financing, that is that paper transaction I was referring to, that's technically a real loan that the authority is making to the partnership. So that on the authority's balance sheet, that will show as a receivable to the authority, which greatly inflates the authority's books to a degree. So after that 15-year period, once the authority exercises their right to purchase the interest of the investor, most likely that debt will be written off. But it's a great way to actually to show the strength of the authority's balance sheet during that period of time.
Zach, I don't want to belabor this. I want to stop because I appreciate all your answers. But what's the buyout at the end, and what is that guaranteed? That's an important issue.
Yes, yeah, it's very important. So there's two options. Part of the tax credit program by statute requires that there's something called a right of first refusal that will be granted to the authority, which means that the authority has the right after that 15-year period to purchase the interest of the investor at the time of sale. So they get the authority has that right. And the deal is structured such that that cost should be zero. So it's basically assuming the existing debt. And that's what I meant by saying that, well, that debt kind of goes away in the future because it'll be essentially written off. But the first mortgage will remain. So that's part of the advantage. The authority can wholly own these properties after that 15-year period for essentially zero, just assuming that first mortgage. In addition to that, there's something called an option. So the authority will have the option prior to that right of first refusal. And we've actually structured it so that that option is called an early exit option, which is actually before that 15-year period. So starting in the 12th year, which is not common, but a great opportunity for the authority. In addition to that, we were able to also structure, which is rare, and I think part of the partnership that the authority has with the investor, and that the relationship that's developed, is that the authority cannot, that right remains under any circumstance. So there could be, all things could go wrong, and there could be issues with the partnership, but in any scenario, that right to have that right of first refusal remains. And that's not something that's granted in many tax credit scenarios. So It's really pretty ironclad to ensure that this asset remains on the authority's books indefinitely.
Do any other directors have any questions or comments at this time? Zachary, could you do me a favor and help me learn how to pronounce your last name?
Yes, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. Zachary DeGorg with Bronner and Company.
Well, Mr. DeGorg, I want to thank you for being such an expert, knowing your stuff inside and out, so that we can feel confident that all of the fiduciary work that is appropriate for the scope of this project has been done, so that we can have confidence that we are moving forward in caring for these assets in a way that continues to serve our community for the longer term. I really appreciate all that you have contributed throughout this project, but in addition today as well. Thank you. And I would also like to recognize and thank the great staff for the Housing Authority of Washington County. Particularly, I want to let you know, thank you, and I'm grateful for your taking responsibility for these assets and their management, so that we continue to offer healthy homes for our community members and homes that are available for the long term for our most vulnerable community members. We know that having stable, healthy homes makes a difference in people's lives. And we could not do this work without your dedication day in and day out. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. And with that, directors, do we have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the executive director to execute all required documents and instruments for the development of the Hawk AHP4 rehabilitation project? We have a motion from Director Roper. We have a second from Director Savaro. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you. Directors, any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. Big accomplishment. Thank you so much, team. That's just wonderful. And now there's some exciting construction that will proceed. And if folks are interested in more information, you can find it on the county website, co.washington.or.us. Next, we'll move on to our second public comment period. This is an opportunity for community members to speak with us for up to 5 minutes a person. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to engage with us?
We had no one signed up, Madam Director. Would any members of the public wish to address the Housing Authority for up to 5 minutes? Give you just a moment to raise your hand if you would like to testify. Not seeing any hands, Madam Director.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. And now it's time for Board of Director announcements. Is there anyone who would like to contribute something today in this monthly meeting? My eyes are scanning each director's window.
Chair Harrington, I do see someone has raised their hand. Not sure if it was just a late click or not.
Oh, yes, you are. Clerk Moss, could you do us the honors?
Yes, I can. Vera, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 5 minutes.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Veronica Nunez, and I'm here to provide testimony in support of Preschool for All on behalf of Adelante Mujeres. I am supporting preschool for all because all children deserve an equitable access to education, and families need a reliable support to be able to work and provide for their families. As an educator and a mom myself, I always believe that preschools should be accessible to any child. Preschools provide a social and learning structure that benefit children and set them up for success when they start their elementary education. Unfortunately, most preschool age children in our community do not have access to quality preschool programming that their family can afford. This places a heavy burden on working families facing the rising cost of living on top of childcare cost. The average cost for preschool in Washington County is $1,390 a month. Preschool isn't just important to Adelante Mujeres. It's a smart, evidence-backed investment in children, families, and communities. A large body of research on early brain and biological development tell us that the sooner children have access to enriching early learning experiences, the sooner they'll begin to develop the key social, emotional, and academic skills they need to succeed later in life. The Preschool for All Coalition is working to build a preschool program that gives all children access to the kind of quality, culturally responsive, inclusive preschool experiences that will support their brain development, lifelong learning, and help us build a thriving community. We are counting on your leadership to help us make this vision a reality. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Nunez. So Clerk Moss, I think we'll move back to Board of Director announcements. Thank you. Directors, is there anything you wish to contribute today? Thank you, by the way, Director Savaro, for catching that. Team effort. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Director Roper.
I just like to throw out there that this weekend Intel will be having a drive for shredding, I believe, on Saturday. And you just drive up to campus and bring your belongings and they'll shred it for you. And then also Cinco de Mayo, this Thursday, it's a Better World Day. And Hillsborough School Districts are doing some awesome stuff by going to parks, and they're requesting families to come and join with their siblings and whatnot and do something good for our county by picking up trash and litter. So check out Walton Recreational Parks and can do your contribution by keeping this community a better place.
Thank you, Director Roper. Do you know which Metro campus, Intel campus is hosting the shred event?
I believe they're having one at Ronald Acres, but Hawthorne Farm maybe as well. You can go check out intel.com to get more accurate information. I got a flyer this morning, but I was running up to the phone booth so I can make it to the meeting.
No worries. Sounds great. Thank you. Anything else, directors? Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn this month's Housing Authority Washington County Board of Directors meeting? We have a motion from Director Roper. Do we have a second? We have a second from Director Savaro. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. So that ends today's Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022 Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting. And in a few moments, we will reconvene on the same Zoom link for the Washington County Board of Commissioners regular meeting.
Chair Harrington, I am going to go ahead and email Kevin confirmation on what locations when I get back downstairs.
Oh, terrific. Thanks so much. Goodbye, Director Roper and Savaro. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Madam Chair, we are ready to go with the regular board meeting.
Okay. Well, I'll gavel us into the Tuesday, May 3rd, Washington County Board of Commissioners regular business meeting. Clerk Moss, could you do us the honors, please?
Thank you, Chair Harrington. The Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and all other county service districts, is now meeting this regular session, May 3rd, 2022. Commissioner Rogers. Commissioner Fye?
Here.
Commissioner Treese?
Here.
Vice Chair Willie?
Here.
Chair Harrington.
Here. Thank you. Just a couple of quick agenda and packet updates. Item E1 was revised recently, so folks will want to catch up with that. And we have one item that we're pulling off of the consent agenda and we'll consider under our action item, and that is item 7 under the consent agenda. All right. So the next item on our agenda is public communication, and Clerk Moss will be sharing an update on that, and then we'll move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. Announcement for the public. Anyone that had signed up to comment on Ordinance 883, we're asking you to hold your comments to the end of the meeting as it was a board discussion deliberation item only. So now we'll continue. Our first person is Tiffany Vargas. Tiffany, can you hear us?
I can. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Vargas. I have lived in Washington County for the past 22 years. Washington County is where I returned to after college and began my career in early childhood education, working for both for-profit and nonprofit programs in our county for the past 12 years. Washington County is also where I met my partner, who is a small business owner, and where we have chosen to raise our family, which now includes 3 amazing daughters who are ages 11, 6, and 2 years old. I wanted to speak with you today to share my hope that you refer preschool for all to the ballot as an individual who has lived in the irony of providing some of the highest quality of care in the programs I worked for in our community for other people's children, while at the same time not qualifying or being able to afford to offer my own children the benefits of a high quality early learning program. I am not alone. Of the 15,866 3- and 4-year-olds living in our county, 13,650 lack access to affordable preschool. I have been a part of a group of community members who have been working since May of last year to develop a plan for universal preschool in our county, because I know that the research on early brain and biological development tells us that the sooner children have access to enriching early learning experiences, the sooner they begin to develop the key social, emotional, and academic skills they need to succeed later in life. The same research clearly shows the impact high-quality preschool can have on that development. But preschool has an impact beyond just the child and family. It's an economic benefit to our community and our school and social support systems. Every dollar invested in preschool yields a $7 to $10 return on investment. The Preschool for All Coalition is working to give every 3- and 4-year-old in Washington County access to high-quality preschool programs that are right for them, and I urge you to refer it to the ballot.
Thank you, Tiffany. Next, we have Lacey Hayes. Lacey, can you hear us? Can you unmute, Lacey? Okay, we'll try you again. We'll move on to the next one. Amy, can you hear us?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Amy Olin, and I am the staff representative for AFSCME Child Care Providers Together. Thank you, Board of County Commissioners, for this opportunity to provide testimony on the need for a Washington County Preschool for All initiative. Our union represents licensed family child care providers who make up over 350 diverse preschool and child care programs in Washington County. Our members are mostly women of color who are small business owners who run childcare and preschool programs of up to 16 children in a residential setting. Our programs are essential, as many provide extended hours and wraparound care that working families depend on. Our programs provide high quality, individualized education and a diverse range of culturally specific programming that children and families need. We know Preschool for All will be an investment in stronger infrastructure at this critical time, while the need for preschool is unmet and preschool providers are desperate for sustainable resources and supports. Preschool for All will be an ongoing infusion of investment that will strengthen family stability, allow more workers to join the workforce that so many industries need right now, and is a smart investment that will generate more wealth back into the local economy. Every child deserves a high quality preschool education that their families can access, and preschool programming that has sufficient resources to provide exceptional care, accommodations, and supports to meet the needs of every child at every level of their need. This initiative will help us to meet the goal while also stabilizing working families and reinvigorating our shared economy. Please support Preschool for All by passing a referral for the upcoming ballot. Thank you for your commitment to children and families in our communities.
Thank you. Next, we have Leica Melendez. Leica, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning, dear Washington County Commissioners. My name is Milka Mendez. I live in the city of Forest Grove, and I'm here to share why I support Free School for All in Washington County. I have a 16-year-old daughter. From the moment she came into our life, we make sure we provide her a place where she had the opportunity to explore and discover. We provide a variety of learning opportunities. Every teenage child needs in those first years of life. We wanted to keep our language, so we always speak in Spanish at home. Those opportunities help my daughter to develop it in cognitive, physical, and language areas. But my daughter was missing something very important: the social, emotional, and the acquisition of the second language, English. I started looking for preschool programs where I could send my daughter, but unfortunately, I didn't qualify for Head Start programs, and I couldn't afford to pay a private preschool. I reapplied again for a Head Start program, and a couple months later, I got a call that my daughter had been accepted in a preschool classroom. My daughter attended preschool for approximately 5 months. This experience helped my daughter to learn how to socialize with other kids, how to solve problems, and allow her to become familiar with English language, which made her transition to kindergarten easier. My daughter adored her teacher, Michelle. I have permission to share her name. Teachers are to be honored. My daughter always said, I want to speak like her, referring to English language. When I was writing my testimony, I asked my daughter again what she learned in preschool, and she replied to me with a big smile on her face and bright in her eyes. She said, I learned to make friends. I learned to speak English, and I learned school rules. Without a doubt, preschool education helps children to acquire skills and abilities that allow them to feel more confident and secure when entering into kindergarten. Investing in education is the best investment. So I ask you, commissioners, to please support Preschool for All in our county. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Malika. Next, Lacey, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Oh, wonderful. Good morning, and thank you for your time. My name is Lacey Hayes, and I'm the mother of a bright, happy, and energetic second grader who experiences autism and ADHD. Our experiences with early childhood education and preschool led me to join the Early Learning Washington County Parent Advisory Committee and eventually the Preschool for All planning committees. I've lived in Hillsborough for 8 years, and my son attends Lennox Elementary School. Normally, I would have him speak a few words for himself in situations like this, but I can't today because he is having an awesome day at school. And I truly believe that the years he was given in preschool have allowed him to have this ability to enjoy himself and thrive in his classrooms. My son's developmental disabilities were identified at 17 months when he began reading letters in the bathtub before he could say mama. We spent much of his early childhood years supported in the early intervention community. At 3, my son attended their autism-specific preschool, and he did wonderfully there. At the end of that first year, it was clear he needed to be in a classroom with typical peers. But there were very few slots in community settings, in inclusive classrooms where he could participate. So we were told we needed to get on a list, and we had to hope there was a place for him. And we were fortunate because there was a place for him. And we would not have been able to afford the high quality centers that he needed without their help. He was able to attend, and on his first day of kindergarten, he walked in confident and certain of himself. But his kindergarten was short-lived. COVID-19 stole half of his kindergarten year, and he was not able to do online schooling, so we homeschooled for all of first grade. But in this autumn, he started up in 2nd grade, and he has taken off to the point to where we filled out tagged paperwork, and his teachers love him. And it's because of that foundation that he was given. So I think it's vastly important that all children, especially those with identified and unidentified special needs, are given the same solid foundation of preschool in our community. So I ask that you please refer a preschool for all to the ballot in November.
Thank you, Lacey. And last for this section, Madam Chair, we have Dale Feek. Dale, can you hear us?
Yes, Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Madam Chair Harrington and Commissioners, I'm Dale Feek, Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network, coalition of grassroots advocates dedicated to improving the quality of life in Washington County by promoting healthy and sustainable communities, social and economic justice, and open and responsive government. U.S. Representative Suzanne Bonamici has written that Catherine Harrington has provided unparalleled leadership during our toughest times. Based upon the hard work that Chair Harrington and staff, in particular Marnie Kyle and her department have done, we in Washington County have been recognized as a best practice leader in pandemic response and recovery activities. I sent you an email in support and asked you to unanimously support the county's application to the Results of America, the Good Jobs and Equity Challenge letter as written by Chair Harrington. As I quote from that letter that you've read, I assume. Through the board's formal adoption of our American Rescue Plan Act investment framework, equity, economic development, and work plan, and our equity resolution, Washington County has committed to ensuring that everyone in our local communities can find jobs that provide dignity, purpose, security, opportunities to grow, and where they can be their true and authentic selves. Across American Rescue Plan Act investments, from small business support to workforce development to child care access, as those people just talked about, we are taking an equity-centered, community-grounded, and outcome-based focused approach. In fact, in early 2022, Results for American recognized Washington County as a best practice leader in pandemic response and recovery activities, celebrating our equitable framework to guide the use of American Rescue Plan activity funds. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. And Madam Chair, that concludes this part of public communication.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, we'll move on to approving our consent agenda. As mentioned earlier, we have pulled item 7 off of the consent agenda. So today's consent agenda consists of 16 items. 1 set of minutes, 2 items from Clean Water Services, 1 item from Health and Human Services, 1 item from Housing Services, 1 item from the Juvenile Department, 3 items from Support Services, and 7 items from Land Use and Transportation. What are the wishes of the commission with regard to today's consent agenda? We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers and a second from Commissioner Treese. All those in favor of voting for this consent agenda, please raise your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we're moving on to proclamations, and May is a busy month. We have 3 different proclamations to read today. And I should have changed my background already. Pardon me for not doing that sooner, because it's already we adopted last week a resolution to recognize this month as Asian Pacific American and Pacific Islander Month. So there we go. Although it may be backwards. So if someone can let me know, no, it's not backwards. Terrific. All righty. So the first one today is to proclaim this month also as Older Americans Month. And for this, we are privileged to have our division director for the Department of Veteran and Adult Services, Rebecca Miller, with us. So if you, oh, and there we are. I'll turn it over to our interim director of Health and Human Services, Ms. Mira Samantel. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. Take it away. Thank you.
No problem, Chair Harrington. Thank you, Chair Harrington, Board of County Commissioners. As the chair said, my name is Mira Samantel, and I'm the interim director of Health and Human Services. We are here today to request that your board proclaim May 2022 as Older Americans Month. With me today is Rebecca Miller. She is our program supervisor for our county's Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services Division. And also we have the privilege of having with us Zephyrina De Leon Dale. She is the chair of our county's Aging and Veteran Services Advisory Council, and she will be reading today's proclamation. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Rebecca.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. Thanks for the introduction, Mira. As she said, I'm Rebecca Miller, Supervisor for Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services, and I also serve as Washington County's Area Agency on Aging Director. Soon, Zephyrina, Ms. Dale will be able to share some stories and introduce herself. But I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to bring this proclamation forward in celebration of Older Americans Month. The National Administration for Community Living provides us a theme each May. So this year, the ACL, Administration for Community Living, is focusing on aging in place and how older adults can plan to stay in their homes and live independently in their communities for as long as possible. The theme is Age My Way, and it's an opportunity for all of us to explore the many different ways that older adults live and can continue to engage with proper planning and support. We hope to highlight for you today why the theme Aging My Way resonates here in Washington County. Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services, as Washington County's Area Agency on Aging, delivers programs and services to keep clients safe and independent in their homes and thriving out in the community. We offer options counseling to aid in long-term care decision-making and planning, provide person-centered services such as information and referral, in-home supports, family caregiver respite and education, access to transportation and technology, and much, much more. Our Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services and our many partners benefit from the meaningful engagement of older adults as advisors, volunteers, and employees. With me is one of those amazing volunteers. She's also an advisor and a partner to us. So I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Dale to share some stories with us. And then actually I'll have a few comments, and then Mr. Moss will read the proclamation.
Thank you, Rebecca, Chair Harrington, everybody here. Very pleased to be here. Cefe de Leon Dale, Wellness Manager for Centro Cultural, Centro nonprofit. We are celebrating 50 years of service in our community, especially to the low-income Latinx migrant farm workers. Aging is a process that we all go through. One of the groups that I work with is Edad de Oro, which the name itself is golden years. I've been working with the group for the last 5 years. We are very fortunate to have community partners such as DAVs, people that with the pandemic, it's been very challenging these 2.5 years. And so we came up with ways to serve our community, to be able to give some of these services. One of our projects that we strongly supported and we're doing is isolation calls to our seniors who are at home. And that was just a tremendous project, and it is a help in our community. We also deliver the food boxes and things that that we can deliver the services and also the resources that we have. Very fortunate to be able to serve on the committee, not just because it's a kind of a pleasure to serve on the committee, but also because of being able to bring back information. Our Latinx community sometimes is not represented. There are voices out there that we don't hear, things that we don't know. So just very fortunate to work with, our committee and with all of you here. Another one of the stories that brings to mind is we lost, seniors during pandemic. Many of our seniors were left, widowers. We have a story that she's a grandmother, and she's now having to raise her grandchildren because she lost her daughter and her husband. And if it wasn't for the resources and just some of the the ideas and things that come from our helping the community or in the meetings here, she's somebody that will now get up and just test it. She wasn't somebody that would talk, but she just has a lot to say because it's survival. It's survival that we're able to do this. A lot of gratitude on behalf of our organization and just the programs that we carry. Very, very fortunate to be part of Edad de Oro. I'm up there too. I'm a senior, and so it is for a service for everybody. But I wish to just say that I'm very honored to be serving on the board and serving our community and being able to bring all this information, because sometimes we don't hear a lot of what's going on. So I just want to say that we really appreciate and I really appreciate being part of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for continuing to volunteer as our chair on Aging Veteran Services Advisory Council. I really appreciate that, and the creativity and passion that you showed throughout the pandemic in creating great programming. And it's just a pleasure to work alongside you. I also wanted to say, commissioners, that as you know, May, as you mentioned, May is also Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And just want to raise your awareness that 8.4% of the population of those communities are age 65 and older. And in the Latino community, about 4.1% are older adults. So in order to age in place, these are not homogenous groups, right? It takes really person-centered planning and individualized support. And really that's why it's critical that we continue to elevate those needs and awareness and deliver person-centered services and fund organizations like Centro, Asian Health and Service Center, Immigrant, Refugee, and Community Organization, and so many others. So just wanted to elevate that, and also just give a quick shout out to all our advisory council members who really helped write the proclamation that Mr. Moss is going to read, and just remind you all that we're all aging. So however you age, that's the right way. And I'm finished with my comments. Thank you.
So Ms. Dion Dale, would you like to read the proclamation?
I think we had prepared Mr. Moss to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
my
okay.
apologies, Chair. That was my mistake at the introduction. So my apologies. No, Mr. Moss will be reading it.
No worries. Go ahead, Clerk Moss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Proclamation, Board of Commissioners for Washington County, Older Americans Month Proclamation, May 3rd, 2022. Whereas Aging My Way is the theme of this year's Older Americans Month, and whereas Washington County boasts nearly 1 in 5 residents who are age 60 or better, speaking over 40 languages in their homes, with more than 14% from communities of color, and who are living and aging in their own unique and meaningful way, and whereas all peoples deserve accessible opportunities for continuous growth, connections to work, family, and community to provide meaning, choices about where and how they live, self-determination, and the resources needed to achieve health and well-being, And whereas through many successes and difficulties of their long lives, older adults have built in rich reserve of resilience, strength, and self-knowing, and what each person needs and wants to successfully age in place is different. And whereas with planning, inclusion, and accessibility, older adults can plan to stay in their homes and live within and contribute to their communities in unique ways. And whereas disability, aging, and veteran services, along with a large aging network, continues to find new ways to support individuals to shape their own future and use the gifts to serve community. And whereas Washington County Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services provides person-centered programs and services and is a hub for older adults to connect to services and programs in the community and help them thrive. And whereas Washington County can help ensure every individual has vast opportunities to age their own way in fostering a supportive, inclusive, and age-positive culture. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this third day of May, 2022, the Washington County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim as Older Americans Month in Washington County and asks every person to recognize and honor older adults in the community and support their aspirations and needs for thriving at every age. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Moss, and to our panel for speaking today. I wish to add to today's comments that the Board of Commissioners Town Hall, which is coming up on Tuesday, June 7th in the evening, will be focused on services for our older adults. As Ms. Miller highlighted, our program here is person-centered, and we want to ensure that we're doing everything we can to get more information out to our community. So, Ms. De Leon Dale, if through the work that you do with Centro Cultural or through the committee, if you have ideas of information that our staff could develop, please do let Ms. Samantel or Ms. Miller know. That town hall will be, as always, supported with Spanish language interpretation, American Sign Language, as well as in English, and is available to all. It is being held through the Zoom application as well as through video on TVC TV and will be recorded to YouTube as well. So, commissioners, we have a proposed proclamation to consider adopting. What are the wishes of the commission? And do feel free to make any comments as well.
I was just going to comment and say I really appreciate the positive lens on this proclamation. I really appreciate it saying folks who are 60 or better. I think that's how we should be talking. And I think lucky ones age. Not everyone get to age. So count me in as a support for anything that I can do as a commissioner to, to pave the way for when I get older and 60 and better, so that I can live and age how I see fit.
Thank you, Commissioner Fye. Anything else, commissioners?
I would take that as a motion because I think at least 3 or 4 of us would be self-serving to recognize ourselves here. But thank you for bringing it to us. I also, in your department, is military families as well. And we've never had a resolution to recognize, which it is a national recognition, May as Military Appreciation Month. Is that going to come back towards us as well?
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers, for elevating that. I think that's an excellent idea that is not scheduled to come before you, but that is definitely something that we can take into consideration, and we appreciate the idea and we will be following up.
So do we have a motion to adopt today's proclamation? We have a motion from Commissioner Treese and a second from Commissioner Fye. All those in favor of proclaiming the month of May as Older Americans Month, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. And may everyone of age 60 or better have the opportunity for a rich life ahead. Next, we'll move on to proclaiming May 2022, it's a popular month, as National Building Safety Month in Washington County. And I'll turn it over to the Director of Land Use and Transportation, Mr. Stephen Roberts.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm pleased to be in front of you today on behalf of our entire Building Services section as we ask you to consider proclaiming May 2022 as National Building Safety Month in Washington County. The Department of Land Use and Transportation is requesting that the Board join with others across the nation in declaring the month of May as National Building Safety Month. This year's theme is Safety for All, Building Codes in Action. The Building Safety Month celebration is, we're one of many participants across the country and the world actually, each May with this month-long awareness campaign that helps individuals, families, and businesses understand what it takes to create and sustain safe and sustainable structures. The campaign reinforces the need for adoption of modern model building codes, a strong and efficient system of code enforcement, and well-trained professional workforce to maintain that system. A couple of partners in this work that I wanted to just call out include Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue and our other fire districts that serve unincorporated parts of Washington County, as well as our developer and builder community who obviously build all of those structures and participate in our review processes. So throughout May, LUT will be partnering with other departments and other agencies to reinforce the importance of energy and innovation, building safety careers, disaster preparedness, and water safety around our building and development work. And I do want to just send my sincere thanks to our staff that work every day to help ensure that we do have safe buildings, structures, and communities for all. And with that, I would be happy to read the proclamation, if that's okay.
Be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Whereas our county is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our community, both in everyday life and in times of natural disaster. And whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of the buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas National Building Safety Month reminds the public about the critical role served by the community's largely unknown guardians of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us safe, efficient, and livable buildings. And whereas Safety for All, Building Codes in Action, the theme for Building Safety Month 2022, encourages all to raise awareness of the importance of energy and innovation, building safety careers, disaster preparedness, and water safety. Building Safety Month 2022 encourages appropriate steps everyone can take to ensure the safety of our built environment and recognizes that the implementation of safety codes by local and state agencies saves lives and protects homes and businesses. And whereas, each year, in observance of Building Safety Month, we are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on this third day of May 2022, the Washington County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim May 2022 as National Building Safety Month in Washington County, and we call upon all residents, businesses, and civic organizations to take steps to ensure the places where we live, learn, work, and play are safe and sustainable, and to recognize that lives have been saved due to the implementation of safety codes by local and state agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Roberts. Any comments or motion for consideration by board members? Is that a motion, Commissioner Willie? Motion from Commissioner Willie, a second from Commissioner Trees. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Thank you, Director Roberts. And now we'll turn it over to a combined Washington County and Clean Water Services proclamation to proclaim May 15th through May 21st of 2022 as National Public Works Week in Washington County. I'd like to turn it over to you, Mr. Roberts, and to you, Mr. Jockers, the Clean Water Services Chief of Staff.
Great, thank you, commissioners, again. And I'm pleased to be joined here, as you said, by Mark Jockers, Chief of Staff for Clean Water Services, as we jointly request that the board proclaim the month of May, or actually May 15th through 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week here in Washington County. The Department of Land Use and Transportation and Clean Water Services are requesting that the board, who also acts as the Clean Water Services Board of Directors, join with many other public works agencies across the nation in declaring May 15 through 21, 2022 as National Public Works Week. This year's theme is Ready and Resilient. Since 1960, the American Public Works Association has sponsored National Public Works Week. Its 28,000 members use this week to increase awareness of the contributions public works agencies and professionals make in their communities. Planning, building, operating, and maintaining the infrastructure of our local communities improves the health, safety, comfort, and quality of life for our community members. This celebration also offers the opportunity to express appreciation to our public works employees, and again, both here in Land Use and Transportation, but also at our partner Clean Water Services. We have many cities and other agencies that we partner with as well that participate. And just briefly, for benefit of those that might be watching, just the Land Use and Transportation mission really on the public works side is mostly around transportation, and so our mission is planning, designing, building, and maintaining a countywide road network that serves cars, trucks, transit, cyclists, and pedestrians to help get people to the places that they need to go in our communities. And for Clean Water Services, of course, their mission is protecting water quality in the Tualatin River Basin, and they do that in part through managing stormwater and sanitary sewer systems, as well as working to improve watershed health throughout the basin. With that, I'll turn to Mark.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you, Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and the Board of County Commissioners. I'm going to read the proclamation Stephen and I will here today to proclaim National Public Works Week, May 15th through 21st of 2022. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital and important to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Washington County. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and in the private sector, and who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to our community. And whereas it is in the public interest for the community members, civic leaders, and children in Washington County to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their communities. And I'll hand it to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Mark. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on this third day of May 2022, the Washington County Board of Commissioners, also acting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services, does hereby proclaim the week of May 15 through 21, 2022 as National Public Works Week in Washington County. And we call upon all community members and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions that public officials and elected officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. And again, I do want to just add a sincere thank you to both the staff at Land Use and Transportation and at Clean Water Services for all the work that they do every day.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments you'd like to make? See, go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
I just want to be very supportive and say thank you very much for the proclamation and for all the work that's done that we don't always see in front of us every day. So thank you.
Yes, and I will add to that it's not just about the roads and the pipelines and the equipment, but there are also folks who take care of signs and traffic lights and the striping for crosswalks and lanes and the chemicals needed for the water treatment and all of the instrumentation that the rest of us may not even know exists, but our everyday life is reliant upon these seamless systems working, and for the foresight that these teams have to extend the life of all of these systems and to ensure that as we move forward and grow as a community, that these systems are able to meet the demand that our community places upon them. Thank you very much. And with that, board members, would someone like to make a motion to adopt this proclamation? Thank you, Commissioner Rogers, and a second from Commissioner Treese. All those in favor of proclaiming National Public Works Week, May 15th through 21st, 2022, please raise your hands. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to our public hearing section of the agenda. Today's public hearings consists of 2 items. The first one is for board deliberation, with regard to proposed ordinance number 883. An ordinance amending the transportation system plan element of the comprehensive plan relating to the future extension of Cornelius Pass Road. This item was continued from the January 18th, 2022 meeting for board deliberation. Public testimony has concluded. Do we have a staff report for today?
Chair, I believe maybe County Council should read by title only.
Mr. Carr, oops, there you are. Do we need to read the ordinance by title only today?
Probably not, but it wouldn't hurt. So I'd be happy to read it by title only.
Hang on. Let's have a motion to read it by title only. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers, and second from Commissioner Treese. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. Commissioner Treese, could you raise your hand? Thank you. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. General Counsel, Mr. Carr, could you please read the ordinance by title only?
Of course. Proposed ordinance number 883, an ordinance amending the transportation system plan element of the comprehensive plan relating to the future extension of Cornelius Pass Road, continued from January 18th, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. I'll make sure we dot all of our I's and cross our T's. So I did want to just, I know, Chair, you alluded to it earlier. We did amend our staff report and our recommendation to the board on Friday with regard to this ordinance. And I know that most of you have met and all of you have heard from a number of community members who would be affected by this proposal to place a line on the transportation system plan for the future extension of Cornelius Pass Road between Rosedale Road and Farmington Road. And we think that it would be prudent at this point to pause, request that your board continue consideration of the ordinance out to October 18, 2022. And in the intervening time period, staff would like to do some additional engagement, obviously with those affected property owners. And we'd like to review our technical findings just to ensure that we've given due consideration of different alternatives for alignments for a future roadway connection in this area. And so that essentially is our updated reflection. And so I think, our objective again being just to ensure that we provide members of the public and of course the board with the best and most complete information that we can about this proposed amendment to the transportation system plan. I do understand that this is a complex issue. We're talking about a future roadway that likely would not be constructed for 10 years or more. And on the other hand, we are attempting to try to balance out that need to plan proactively and ensure that we do have a connected and multimodal transportation system that will serve both our current but mostly our future residents as we plan out our community. And so again, we do appreciate the board's consideration today. We do have a staff presentation that we certainly can walk through for you now, or if the board were inclined simply to continue the hearing to October 18th, we could potentially forego the presentation. And then either way, we're certainly available, myself, Aaron Wardell, our principal transportation planner, and Andy Back, our planning and development services manager. We're all here to help answer any questions that you may have, take any feedback or input that you may have on any additional information needs that you have on this topic. And we look for your direction. So thank you.
Commissioners, any comments at this juncture?
Madam Chair, I'd make a comment that if we are continuing, which I think is the right approach based on staff's analysis, that looking at a presentation today only will confuse it because it's apt to change substantially between now and when we might see it back in October or November. So I certainly go with the majority, but to me, I don't see value of hearing the presentation. We've seen it.
Any other commissioner thoughts? Go ahead, Vice Chair Willie.
Yeah, I'd like to basically, I agree with Roy on that as far as the presentation, but I'd also like to say thank you to Stephen and the staff. Everybody, Aaron, certainly you're going out there and physically meeting with those folks. And the commissioners have all gone out there. So I think this is the right way to do business. And so I appreciate certainly the opportunity to extend this to October 18th and appreciate the hard work that everybody's doing to trying to find a happy spot. So thanks for that. Keep up the good work.
Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, Chair. I also support the position that Commissioner Rogers and Commissioner Willie have stated about not necessarily reading the report today and moving forward. As I mentioned in my update at the work session, I was out at the location yesterday. I was provided with a lot of information from the residents there. They also provided me, and I'm certain that they did with two other commissioners as well, a packet of information about the history of all the individuals that live there. So it's been very informative. I appreciate the staff working hard, and thank you, Aaron, for coming out yesterday as well. We just need to be, I used the term innovative yesterday. I really want to make sure that we're being creative, we're being innovative as we work through this issue. So thank you to the staff for their time. And most importantly to me, thank you for the residents for the time you took to educate me and the other commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Treese. Commissioner Fye, do you have any comments you'd like to add?
No, I'm glad we are able to provide some peace of mind to the residents because this is really concerning issue for the residents, and I'm sure has been keeping them up. So I guess we'll come back to October 18th and figure out if where we are in terms of how the residents feel. And I think, Aaron, you were able to provide new information to the residents yesterday. Are you able to share some of that information, or should we wait October 18th when you come back?
I don't think that we provided any new information yesterday. It was more clarifying some questions from the community. And then we, of course, offered to come back again and have more in-person coordination with them in advance of that October 18th meeting. So if that's the board's direction today, we'll be looking at putting together technical information for them and preparing for those meetings.
Okay, so is it, I wasn't aware that the county could purchase the properties for the entire property for the, I learned that recently. So it sounds like that's a new information since Mondays too. Or
in advance of a capital project, we could acquire properties. In this particular case, that's really a long ways away that we would have the identified alignment fully designed and we would know which properties we would need to acquire. So that's a conversation that we would have with the community and lay out the timeline for how acquisition could take place. But we wouldn't know at this time where to acquire property because we haven't done that detailed design work.
Okay, I guess we'll wait October 18th then.
Thank you, commissioners. I'd also like to add to the list of future information needs. I do not have an answer to the question of why an alternative along Rosa Road and 209th has not been pursued. Folks are asking questions about why having the urban traffic needs taken care of within the urban area has not been considered as one of the alternatives. And I don't have the answer to that question. So I look forward to hearing more about that from staff, at least before, if not also in that October 18th meeting. So at this juncture, what we need is a motion to continue this item to our time certain Tuesday, October 18th. We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers, a second from Commissioner Willie. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Mr. Carr, I assumed we could do a voice vote on that continuation versus a roll call. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. So we will have this item come back to us. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the Service District for Lighting. Number 1 item, to approve the formation of the assessment area, authorize the maximum annual assessment, and impose a first-year assessment for Southwest 107th Avenue area. First, we have a staff report.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'm back again. Joined this time by Stacia Sheeler, who is our Service District for Lighting Coordinator in the Department of Land Use and Transportation. And your board acts also as the Board of Directors for the Service District for Lighting. And so this is an unusual circumstance. This doesn't happen very often, but we actually have a community-initiated request or petition to add street lighting within an existing development. Your board very routinely acts on requests to create new assessment areas and install street lighting in new developments. So this one is a little bit different, does require a public hearing in this case. And so with that, I will turn to Stacia to go ahead and walk us through a quick staff report and presentation, and then we'll both be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. This proposed assessment is on Southwest 107th Avenue. Can we go to the next slide, please? In the spring of 2020, multiple property owners in the area of Southwest 107th Avenue reached out to county staff and PGE to inquire about the addition of street lighting to their neighborhood. With COVID and PGE staff shortages due to multiple weather event outages, it's taken longer than usual to move forward with this request. A PGE staff representative and I met on site on multiple occasions
to determine the feasibility of adding new lights and determine where they would provide the most benefit to the traveling public. It became evident that it would be cost effective to add 20 lights to existing utility poles. PGE covers the installation costs, and any energy and maintenance costs are assessed equally to the property owners. When we received requests for lighting, it is our standard practice to evaluate the surrounding area and use the opportunity to provide lighting to enhance the safety of the traveling public and potentially reduce crime in these areas. Street lighting was not always a requirement of development, and there are pockets throughout the urban growth boundary that could benefit from the addition of lighting. If this development were built today, the lighting would be required to meet the county road and design standards. In this case, we received 48 signed petitions in favor of the new lighting. Anyone not returning their signed petition has been counted as a no vote. We did receive via telephone or email opposition from 4 properties. It is required by SDL Ordinance Number 3 that more than 50% of the affected property owners be in favor to move forward with the installation of the lighting. The 48 signed petitions in favor is equivalent to 55% of the property owners. And as you can see on this slide, the minimum annual assessment would be $14.14 to each of the 87 properties. Next slide, please. Outlined in blue, you will see the proposed area for the new streetlights. The areas outlined in red indicate already existing assessment areas. By installing lights in this area would be complete. Next slide, please. Following this public hearing, staff recommends form the Southwest 107th Avenue assessment area for new street lighting service as requested by the majority of the property owners. Authorize maximum annual assessment and impose the first year assessments. Next slide, please. Any questions?
Commissioners, do you have any questions on this proposal? Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, just doing the quick math, and I see you got a minimum and a maximum, but what's the cost to install a light? Because you've got at $28 times 87 is $2,400, and that's for 20 streetlights. So that's pretty, seems to be pretty cheap. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
Typically, street lighting is very inexpensive to the property owners within an assessment area because PGE covers those installation costs. In this case, each street light fixture itself is $4.50 each, and there's no charge for each pole because they are existing utility poles. So it is very inexpensive in this case.
That's a great program. So great. Yeah, and I would note, Commissioner, the initial assessment is the $14.14 per year per property. And the maximum annual assessment, the board's practice has been to establish a cap or a maximum assessment that is double the initial assessment, so that it just provides room that if energy and maintenance costs were to increase over time, it does allow for adjustment of that annual assessment rate up to that maximum assessment amount.
We typically find too that the actual minimum assessment rate, it can be a bit lower than what we estimate as the minimum as well. Any other questions?
Chair Harrington, may I? Let me raise my hand. There we go.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fye.
Thank you for this great presentation. I just had a quick question about the folks that were speaking against the opposition, as you referred. What were their main concerns?
We had 4 different property owners that reached out, and all 4 were concerned that they had lived in the neighborhood for 30 plus years and had enjoyed the darkness of their neighborhood, and were concerned about the migratory birds and things of that nature. As you may know, the LED lighting that is used nowadays, it's used to promote the dark sky friendly movement. So it doesn't interfere with the, it's known not to interfere with the migratory birds or the wildlife.
Thank you. That's all my question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
And has there been any input about safety here?
Input from the residents?
Yes.
The initial request from one of the people who sent me an email, their concern was safety at the intersection of Hawthorne, Southwest Hawthorne and Southwest 107. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that area, but there is a corner there that is, it's pretty blind. And I've been out there in the daytime as well. And it's a tough one, and a lighting would definitely enhance that.
I just wanted to, no pun intended here, to shine a light on the safety issues in relationship to this.
Thank you, Commissioner Treese. Any last board member questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion to move forward with forming this service district for
Madam Chair, to open the public hearing.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to open a public hearing. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to address us?
We had no one signed up. Would any members of the public wish to provide public testimony on this public hearing item? Give you just a moment to raise your hands. Not seeing any hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. And with that, we'll close today's public hearing. Do we have a motion to move forward to form the Southwest 107th Avenue Assessment Area within the Service District for Lighting Number 1 and authorize the maximum annual assessment and oppose first-year assessments? We have a motion from Commissioner Treese. Do we have a second? A second from Commissioner Rogers. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Let there be light. Next, we'll
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll come back to consent agenda item number 7. This is with regard to approving the, designation of 2 tax lots as a county park to be operated under the Facilities and Park Service Division. I'd like to turn it over to our Assistant County Administrator, Rachel Fuller, and her team.
Thank you very much, Chair Harrington. We do have a presentation that we put together, and I'd ask Greg Wyman, Real Property Manager, to go through this at that time, and then we're happy to answer questions.
Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Greg Wyman. I'm the Real Property Manager for Washington County. And today, this action item, we're seeking the approval of the designation of 2 county-owned properties to be operated as a park under the Facilities and Park Services Division. Next slide, please. There are 2 tax lots that the county owns, consisting of approximately 0.71 acres, located at the northeast corner of Cornell Road and 113th Avenue. And this lies just within the city of Beaverton's jurisdiction. In 1996, Land Use and Transportation, as part of the road improvement project to Cornell Road, acquired these properties. In 2003, the county received a federal transportation enhancement grant through Metro and created Cedar Mill Sentinel Plaza. The properties were offered to both the city of Beaverton, THPRD, both declined to accept the conveyance. Next slide, please. This is at a highly visible intersection, and the county-owned properties have not been consistently maintained or cared for, and it has created some overgrowth and constituent concerns and complaints. Next slide, please. Oregon 275320 provides for the county to designate this as a park with a resolution and order from the city in which the property lies within. And the city of Beaverton has provided this resolution and order. This is about 15 minutes away from Metzger Park and can be absorbed by the grounds crew of Metzger Park. With no new resources requested to maintain the property. There are no plans for change of nature or character of the property. The designation of a park will ensure consistent maintenance and in keeping with the intended purposes of the 1996 creation and the 2003 Metro Grant for improvements. Staff recommends the approval of this designation. Next slide. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Rogers, this was an item that you asked to have pulled from the consent agenda. So we'll start with you.
Sure, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I think we sort of remember the chronological order of how all this happened, but I want to bring attention to this. Secondly, I want to comment that I don't know of any other urban parks that the county owns. And don't say Metzger because that's an LID by the owner. So I think this is the only urban park we have. We were very clear back in 86, 85, 87, and so forth that we weren't in the urban service business. And this is a very big change, even though it's a little tiny piece of property. It's a big change. And so I'm concerned about that. I know we're going to back ourselves in a corner. We got a grant that's a piece of ground that nobody wants to maintain. But I just want to say to our city partner and our park district over there that they should be accepting these. I mean, this is their area, not ours. And if we're not going to be in the urban service business by their choice, no matter how small and incremental it is, I would certainly ask them to reconsider their positions, accept this property and say that they will take it into their either district or city, because that's strictly what it is. I mean, we don't, as a county taxpayer, I mean, I'm not incorporated. I really, and I know you said it's not going to cost anymore, it's still costing money to maintain it. I really don't think I want my money to go to urban parks. I want the cities to absorb those in the park district. So I've made my point. I don't know that we can do anything. It's just frustrating to me that nobody stepped up and said, sure, we'll take on this park and maintain it in their city. So that's what I'm a little frustrated with. But I accept your proposal. I accept the position that we're in. It just, well, as I said, frustrating, and I'll stop.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. I've raised my hand because I have some questions as well. Mr. Wyman, as you have explained and is noted in the consent agenda material, in 2003, these parcels were improved by Washington County itself through a transportation enhancement federal grant that went through the Metro process. So am I correct in understanding that the Board of County Commissioners back in 2003 made the decision to apply for a federal grant to improve and install this plaza?
I don't have the history of that 2003 initiative, but I do know that there was funding, you are correct, that was given, and that was to add the plaza, commission an artist to carve one of the cedar trees into the existing totem or peace pole that is there today for reflection, and add some lighting to that corner.
Was that perhaps done when Cedar Hills Boulevard was extended by any chance? Was that the same time frame?
This was acquired in '96 as part of that improvement to Cedar Hills Boulevard and extension. And then in 2003 is when it was improved. And part of this was offered to the community who was not happy with the extension and the improvements of Cedar Hills Boulevard there. And that intersections. So this was kind of the olive branch that the county had offered at that time.
Okay. So I do agree with Commissioner Rogers that the county, especially as we've seen through the proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year, does not have resources to continue to manage an asset as a county urban park or urban plaza when it's in the jurisdiction of a couple of other local governments, in this case, within the city of Beaverton and with THPRD. And THPRD does manage trails and multiple other parks in the area. So I think it's worth if, depending upon the result of the board discussion and deliberation today, I, for one, think that I'd like to direct Ms. Angie to go back and engage with those two local elected governing bodies, and I'd be happy to join to reconsider this approach. You know, I know we're not talking about getting rid of this property and plaza altogether, but I do think we have to be mindful of the future maintenance of this facility. Times have changed. So let me take my own hand down. And since Commissioner Treese has not spoken yet, I'd like to call on her first and then you, Commissioner Rogers. Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, Chair. And I also agree with Commissioner Rogers. It's in this plaza is in my district, and you know, I would be more than willing to engage in those discussions as well. So my hands up for as a resource, not just to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner Treese. Commissioner Rogers.
Greg, I don't blame you for your recollection. I find it, since we've had this senior proposal today, I tend to forget things back that far as well. But it was clearly an intent by, I think it was Commissioner Scouten at that time, it was trying to do something to make the parcel look a little better. But I can clearly say, if they were all sitting here today, I would remind them of that, those commissioners, that it was always our attempt to do things that would enhance the neighborhood and then turn it over to the jurisdiction that was most appropriate to manage those resources. And so I'd just be curious why both the Park District and the city, who both have excellent programs, particularly the park. I mean, they've got an outstanding award-winning national program. Why they're refusing it? There's something that just, I don't have the information, but I don't blame you. I'll vote for wherever you want to do. But if I had my druthers, I would say, let's go back to them and say, well, why, what do you know that we don't? And why are you declining, the opportunity to be a full service city or full service park district in your area? Because that's what they are. So I'll stop.
At this juncture, if I might ask Ms. Angie, would you prefer for us to just take no action today, but give you the direction for such engagement? Or would you prefer we actually vote this down today?
No, I would suggest we, and I'm looking at,
table it?
Yeah, table it. I was looking at Mr. Carr for the right language. Table it. I would ask, in the spirit of supporting community livability, though, that we do allow our park staff to at least clean up the area for our community while we work through this.
Great idea. So do we have a motion to table this item for today? We have a motion from Commissioner Treese, a second from Commissioner Rogers. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Great discussion.
Thanks for putting that information together for us, Mr. Wyman, and for joining us, Ms. Fuller. Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
I would also like to express my appreciation to Commissioner Rogers for removing that from the consent agenda for this discussion. So thank you for that.
All righty, the next item on the agenda is public communication, our second period for today's meeting. This is an opportunity for community members to come and speak with us for up to 5 minutes. Clerk Moss, what do we have?
First, we have Carrie. Carrie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Clerk Moss.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you firstly to the commissioners that we've had out to visit us with our issue with Ordinance 883. We've appreciated you all coming out, and Commissioner Rogers, we will look forward to seeing you in the near future so we can connect with the whole group. We also appreciated Erin's attendance yesterday, and having the ability to speak face to face with her was very helpful. I guess after the 5-0 motion that was carried, or excuse me, it's not technical, I'd like some clarity on the process of what happens now. I'd like to be really certain that this is going to be reopened for public testimony. That wasn't clear from the resolution. And if not, I would really like to see this go back to the Planning Commission so that we have the opportunity for full public testimony. There is still a lot of community involvement, and a lot of people got a lot of things to say, and about a whole wider piece as well as this ordinance. It should have come out. So if we get some clarity on that, but our definite request is this is open again for public testimony instead of being shut down. We would also like to get clarity, please, on a timeline for the draft reports that are being done by the staff and these being made available to us. Commonly, these reports are coming out just a few days before before your meetings, and we are not technical experts, and trying to understand them and therefore give meaningful input is really difficult, but we'd like to be included in the process and understand what's going on and feel that we're actually part of, we're not technical experts like Erin and Stephen and the other people, but we've got a perspective. And just getting it a few days before the meeting is super hard to have meaningful input. Also, clarity on the timing. Mr. Roberts, excuse me, I hope I got your name right, talked about 10 years. Yesterday, Erin talked 20 to 25 years. We keep getting these conflicting timeframes about when this might be happening. And therefore, if we can get some, I know you probably haven't got the answers, but there must be something that's going on behind the scenes that we can understand more clearly and then look at pathways to help us. That's what we're asking for. I thought I had 2 minutes, so I only prepared notes for the start since we all got pushed to the end and we weren't able to speak at the start. I'm not going to take my full 5 minutes, but we really did want to thank you. We've got to know some of you, we'll get to know the rest of you, and we are going to become a fixture in your lives while we go through this, and we appreciate your help. Thank you.
Next, we have David Bennett. David, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, so my name is David Bennett. I do live at 22505 Southwest Riggs Road. So I am a property owner that is not impacted by the destruction of my property, but by the impact of having such a roadway come through. My respectful request, since the board has chosen to defer a decision on this for further study, the 883 was presented with 2 alternative paths, and it became fairly apparent that one of those paths was not acceptable to the planning department. So what's really being presented in 883 is it's this one or nothing, and my respectful request is take the opportunity to look at alternatives. The alternatives may not end up being preferable, but to indicate that there are no alternatives is disingenuous. And the Rosedale Farmington path is an example of a possible alternative. So please take the opportunity to explore alternatives. Second, this is clearly part of a larger plan. When it was first presented to the Planning Commission, the county planners presented it as a fulfilling a responsibility to South Hillsborough to connect to Farmington. But a testimony from the city of Hillsborough clearly indicated that they wanted to have a connectivity model that brought Cornelius Pass all the way down through Clark Hill and onto Shoals Ferry. And yet none of that is anywhere in this ordinance. So there's a broader picture, and I respectfully request that you take the opportunity to expose to the community what that broader picture is. Specifically, we know there is a plan to expand 209th, but we don't have a timeline for that. And whether that's a higher priority than this or lower priority, that's an example of better understanding what the overall plan is. Please actively engage the other property owners, particularly Clark Hill owners that would clearly be impacted by the long-term goal on this. And those are the two main things: is come up with alternatives that have been seriously explored, and engage the community with particularly the property owners with the broader picture of what is your intent. From a personal standpoint, I'm baffled why you would even consider impacting the rural reserve by having improvements to Clark Hill, and yet Clark Hill, as it stands today, I can't see how it could be effectively used to accomplish your longer goal. So those are my requests, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, David. Would any other members of the public wish to provide comment at this time for up to 5 minutes? Give you just a moment to raise your hand. Not seeing any additional hands, Madam Chair.
Ms. Angie, I assume that as a result of our choosing to continue the hearing of ordinance 833 earlier, that you and your staff will be letting us know what the plans are for further engagement activities and so forth moving forward between now and October 18th, and that information will also be available on the county website and through other channels that I know the staff of Washington County tries to take advantage of for getting information out to our community.
You are absolutely correct. Our land use and transportation team is actively working on a community engagement and process timeline that we will share with your board, with our community through the website and other channels. And also I want to lift up, I and the team appreciate the input from the property owners. And so our team will be communicating that information directly with the property owners as well.
And I don't know if Ms. Wardell, as it was mentioned earlier, was at a meeting yesterday, if that was the same meeting that Commissioner Treese had or not. Okay, I see that Commissioner Treese is indicating yes. I think I wasn't under the impression when a meeting was set up with me that it would have been good form for me to ask for staff support to join me. So I just went without that. So I know at a minimum, I'll need to engage with you to find out what is the practice that you would like us to have moving forward, not just for this project, but for others. Commissioner Treese, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
I just want you to know that after I could not make the meeting with you because I was ill, I rescheduled, and it was offered that Aaron could attend as well. So I don't. It wasn't. That was the way it worked. So just so that you know, that was the process, and we may need to establish guidelines for those types of things, but I just wanted to clarify what exactly had transpired.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. I don't know that such an offer was extended to anyone else. That's all. Any other board members. So, okay. Are there, so we're done with the second public communications section. We'll move on then to board announcements. I gave a pretty extensive announcement at the meeting last week about our future meetings as well as our budget committee meetings in May. But I know I need to read off some of them. So this Friday, May 6th, we have the Clean Water Services Board of Directors Budget Committee meeting starting at 9 in the morning. Then we go full steam ahead in the month of May for the various Washington County Budget Committee meetings, starting Monday, May 9th at 5:30, followed by Thursday, May 12th at 5:30, then Monday, May 16th at 5:30, followed by Thursday, May 19th at 5:30. As to our regular business meetings and work sessions, next Tuesday, May 10th, it'll be all work session day starting at 9 a.m. Then the following Tuesday, we'll have a work session at 9 a.m., which will reconvene later in the day after we hold our board meeting at 10 in the morning. And then to complete the month on Tuesday, May 14th, we'll have a work session in the afternoon starting at 2, and then our evening board meeting at 6:30 p.m. Are there any other board announcements for today?
Madam Chair, a request, since it's 12:15, can we come back at 1:30? Give us our chance to get a little
Certainly.
break. Yeah.
Thank you for recognizing the time. I appreciate that help, Commissioner Rogers. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other board announcements? Okay, at this juncture, so we'll reconvene for our work session at 1:30 in the afternoon. Do we have a motion to adjourn today's business meeting? We have a motion from Commissioner Fye, a second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. So that's it for our regular business meeting of Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022. Thanks, everyone. See you at 1:30. Bye-bye.